We would love to take any questions that you have, so please, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations, and maybe the beginning of a dynasty here in the
I hope so.
the case study competition. But Ben, you mentioned something that surprised you in terms of the relationships and the way that the bank operated. I wonder if there were any other surprises or takeaways that you had, maybe that you could share with us, because I think part of this is really to expose students to a sector of banking that is not well known, and I think really the value of it is the experience, as you said, Dr. Farley. So any other surprises or things that you came away with that were meaningful to you?
The biggest thing for me was the big difference in bank accounting than everywhere else accounting. When I was looking, I took that first look and I saw loan on the asset side. I kind of just chuckled and got really confused. So it was just a whole new world of looking at financial statements and understanding a whole new type of business model. That was my biggest takeaway from that.
Anybody else?
Off the top of my head.
I will say it was impressive to see how quick they picked up on. All three of these guys were new to it, and just the questions they asked and how fast they picked up on the concepts that we were sharing with them. They did a great job with it.
I'll echo that in that I know I met with them once. I think I missed maybe a couple meetings in a row and came back and knew they were going to be talking to the bank officers. And I said, here's some questions you need to think about. And they said, we already asked those. so they were ahead of the game. They were doing very well.
Yeah, those follow-up calls were fun. They were exciting to hear what they had looked at and what they had learned, and then just to see, again, what they were picking up on and the different concepts. And that was pretty neat to see them grasp that.
I've got a question.
Yes.
I guess I'll just turn this off.
I think it's on. All right. I think y'all were talking about generational differences between, your age group and a lot of different age groups you see here. I guess the thing that I'm curious about is, what would excite you about looking at the financial industry? What's the things you think, having been exposed to it now, you find exciting? Maybe nothing, but I would be interested to hear what are some of your thoughts?
I guess I can start us off with that. So I guess the banking industry kind of has this stigma of being kind of a boring, stagnant industry and not having a lot of change. But the more that I've looked into it, I've learned so much about the impact that banking has, not only in the financial area, but also just in communities as well. So that would be the biggest thing, is maybe changing that stigma of banking being an old business to a fresh, new ideas, growing, exciting business model.
In terms of direct subjects, technology, there were a lot of conversations I had with the information technology officer about, though they are also opportunities, they are also threats, and understanding that just because there's new technology doesn't necessarily mean that it's helpful in community banking or that it's like a safe investment. But the fact that technology is ever changing and there are early adopters, whereas there's also conservative adopters like commercial bank. And no, definitely the technology was interesting.
Yeah, I think just seeing how much the bank was able to give to the community and how much the community meant to them, just that aspect of being able to, at your work, say that you're making a noticeable difference outside of just your typical work aspect. You're changing the community for the better. I liked that.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuchs, please.
So I guess this question is for you, Cole. I guess you had the technology section of this, and you just mentioned it again. Can you share with me what technology got you most excited, right? Because you talked about commercial bank and trust maybe being a little bit ahead of things, right? And actually, we tend to hear that community banks, they like to be fast followers, right? Let maybe some of the larger institutions take some of that risk. So I'm just interested maybe in getting a little more from you on kind of the technology package. You saw Commercial Bank and Trust, and then what elements of that maybe got you most excited and that you thought were most promising?
Yeah. I was excited earlier in the previous session when I heard the word cybersecurity. I have no idea like what exactly banks use to protect against malware and things of that nature. But I think it sounded a lot cooler. It was like CrowdStrike Falcon or something that Freshie had mentioned, Scott had said, and he started to break that down to me. We have like a row, I still like see it in my email. There's like 54 email conversations of me just asking him a bunch of questions. He was probably annoyed. But definitely cybersecurity and the phishing program. I had an extensive conversation with him about how to prepare employees for that kind of thing. I know I mentioned it earlier, so I'm repeating myself, but I mentioned them because those were very, very interesting.
And I'll add on to that. It's kind of a minute thing, but just shows how forward-thinking they are. Is we went there and we were going to present like our paper and our video that we created for the case study. And he looked at us when we walked in. He's like, "Y'all didn't put it on a flash drive, right?" And we're like, "No." He goes, "Okay, good, because it wouldn't work without a password." So just I guess the forward-looking, being prepared side of the technology was the biggest thing from that.
Any other questions?
I didn't have a microphone in front of me. I didn't know if that was a hint I shouldn't ask. So you all talked about how much work it was. I'm going to assume it was worth it.
Yes.
But my question is, what advice would you have for student teams in future years?
We were actually discussing this earlier about how each of the teammates ended up on the team. And I remember being in the office with Mr. Clark, and he had just presented the idea to me. And when he had said that, I realized like immediately how much work it would be. Not that I was afraid of doing work, but I would say to not be afraid to just do it. Don't be afraid to not get first place. I told them a lot of times that it's like, we wouldn't be competing here if we weren't trying to get first place. And that's the way that I see it. It's like, don't be afraid to take that step and get involved in something that is mostly foreign to college students.
It's foreign to a room full of bankers as well. Take a little risk. No, just kidding.
My biggest piece of advice would be to ask all the questions, and maybe they don't have an answer for you, but they'll figure it out. So just using this opportunity to grow your expertise and to learn and get that real close relationship with that partner bank, that's what's going to put that paper and that video to the next level. Having that strong community and just asking everything you would like to know.
Yeah. I would say definitely take advantage of your faculty advisors that you have, and when they're telling you how to phrase certain things or like make sure you listen to what they say, because they have that experience in the writing aspect and presentations, and just make sure you use them to the fullest extent that you can.
Anyone else? Got another one over here? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Face. I'm the commissioner from Virginia. And just listening to you three, thinking back to when I started my career as a bank examiner, if I had known what you already know before I went in and talked to my first banker, I would have been a lot better off. Especially when I had to deliver some bad news. Clint, I don't know if you talked to them during the process about regulation, and state versus federal, and that kind of thing. I know you have a great state bank commissioner in Greg Gonzalez, I'm a good friend.
Yes.
But the interplay there and how
Right.
that works.
Yeah, we
Just one final question for the three. Notice my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, but it looks like you three have sort of orange ties on.
Yes.
Is that for Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay.
it's for Tennessee Martin.
Right.
Martin.
Tennessee
Yeah.
Martin.
There you go.
not Knoxville.
That's right. Yeah.
It's the right color, though.
Yeah, we have discussed, that was one topic that's come up quite a bit, is just opportunities in banking. I think it was mentioned earlier by Mr. Cooper is as a bank, what we've tried to do is share the banking industry with students. I think oftentimes these students don't realize the opportunity that's out there for them. And so that's one thing we've done through our partnerships with UTM is to hopefully introduce banking to some of these students. Because we as a bank, we're always looking for that talent. We all need that and have to have it. And so that's been that's been one of the good parts of this relationship with UTM is that we've hopefully created some interest in banking. These guys had the benefit of meeting with some examiners with the Fed here during one of the breaks. So they were exposed and are getting exposed to different areas in our industry that are opportunities for this group that's entering the workforce right now.
Way in the back. Yes.
Hi there. Melanie Hall, I'm the Commissioner of Montana. Prior to this experience, which I've read your paper and I thought you guys did a great job, how often had you guys been in a bank? I will say I'm 45,
I'll actually answer this
and
one.
I somewhat consider it to be a failure. I don't have a small business, so I don't spend, but I sort of consider it to be a failure of my bank's app if I actually have to go inside. So I'm just really curious. You're 20-something years younger than I am.
I'm gonna.
How
oh,
often?
sorry.
How often have you spent time in a bank prior to this?
I'm going to jump out ahead of him for just a second to say UT Martin is kind of a weird spot because the previous university I taught at, nobody ever went to a bank branch, the students. Here, most hands will go up when I ask that question in class, and I'm always shocked because I keep expecting the generation to come along that, what's a bank branch? Why would I go in there? But they're a little more savvy in terms of what banks do, I think, because it's not just coming from their app on their phone. And that's usually beneficial. But telling students to forget everything, most of our examples in accounting and finance classes are commercial firms, not commercial banks. And so when they walk into a commercial bank class and I say, forget everything you just learned about a commercial firm, and Ben hasn't had that class, by the way, then seeing that growth is, I love that with our students, but that's weird. So I think each of them probably, I'll let them answer your question, but.
Yeah. I could start. I went into the bank when I opened my account originally. I share the same sentiment to where, like, if I have to go into the bank, I don't enjoy it. I've probably been in like less than 10 times since I opened my account, like 10 years ago. So as infrequently as possible for me.
I'm in that kind of weird spot. I do like going in the bank, so I am a treasurer for one of the organizations on UT Martin. So whenever I'm dealing with cash, I like to give it to them in person so that it's two-factor people. I've checked it, then they've checked it. It's everything's going through correctly. So
He actually would.
So yes, I'm one of those non-traditional. I like seeing the people in the bank.
I can actually piggyback off of Ben. My very first job when I worked in a grocery store, my employer, he was an older gentleman, he only gave checks, like as physical checks. There was no such thing as direct deposit in his grocery store. When I worked for the university, I think because of him, I was the only resident assistant that asked for my check in physical. And my boss thought that was so funny. He was like, "You're the only reason we still have this." But I would go and get my check and take it to the bank because I like to talk to the people there. As much as I'm probably that employee that they want to get out so they can go back to having their other conversation, I like going in as well. So.
Anyone else?
One last, Cole, your comment about being selected for the team intrigued me to hear more about how the team was formed and if you all knew each other beforehand.
So I knew Ben. When I was in the office with Mr. Clark and he had like proposed the idea, the first question was, we have to form a team. What are your thoughts? And so I felt the weight immediately. I was like, oh, who do I need on this team? That way we can succeed. And I knew Ben from college. We were friends. And so his name like immediately came to my mind because I was like, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm like the management marketing major. And I was thinking of people top of mind, and Ben came up first, and then I think Ben recommended Dan. Is that?
I might have said Dan's name. I can't remember for sure.
I think Dr. Farley,
It's possible.
I think you said you recommended.
Yeah, we get out, there's lots of ways that people come to the team, but they all have to make it through Mr. Clark's interview, so that's part of that as well. As an old CEO, he's a pretty tough interviewer. He knows what he wants, so that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks again to Mark, Dan, Ben, Cole, Clint, University of Tennessee Martin, and of course CSBS for continuing the case study competition. And again, congratulations, and we look forward to, I guess, an announcement at some point for the 2024 CSBS case study competition.